So Ian Garry's back in the limelight. He just did a big interview with Ariel Helwani, the first interview that he's done since taking sick leave and pulling out of his fight with Vicente Luque at UFC 296. And guys, I'm not so confident that Ian Garry is cut out to be a big UFC star after this one, because he said some things that have me worried in regards to his star power. I'm not so sure anymore, and we're going to get to that at the end of this video. But before, I have to address Ian Garry's comments when it comes to all of the criticism that he received in the build-up to his last fight, which ultimately may have led to him pulling out, all right? Because some of these comments, some of the statements that Garry was making are just insanely hypocritical, and I want to rant about them. So the first clip that I'm going to show you is a response to Ariel Helwani's question, and Ariel basically asks, what's your take on all of the criticism? What do you have to say about all of this tremendous backlash that you got in the build-up to your last fight?
I feel like a lot of people are sheep, and a lot of people believe some ridiculous things online and they run with it. And then a lot gets kind of Chinese whispers taken out of context. And a lot of people don't understand my personal life or anything to do with it or anything to do with me, my family, my team.
Listen, I understand how it's annoying when people take things out of context, okay? I totally understand why Ian Garry's upset, and he's entitled to be upset. But he should not be that surprised when people call him out for the exact same shit. And I'm talking about the Neil Magny situation, right? Ian Garry's basically saying people have taken so many things out of context. They talked about the WAG book. That was a comedy book. It was just a joke. All right, fair enough. They talked about the last name. Hey, I didn't take my wife's ex-husband's last name. It was her father. I took my wife's father's last name. That's something that people took out of context. He's human, all right? They're talking about his family. They're misrepresenting things. I understand why a man would get upset at that. But he did the exact same shit when it came to Neil Magny. He took Neil Magny's words, which were typical commonplace trash talk in MMA.
And being a father, I've become quite accustomed to that kind of whooping now, and that's kind of what I'm looking forward to giving on Saturday.
I'm going to whoop him like he's a kid of mine, which is not that crazy. He's not a savage that was saying, I'm going to give this guy a fucking beatdown like I do at 9 p.m. every night. He wasn't saying that. But of course, Ian Garry then takes Neil Magny's words, blows them way out of proportion, takes them out of context, the context being trash talk, all right? It's not serious. And then he uses that at a press conference to portray Neil Magny as an abusive father.
We are tackling a very, very big fucking issue here, mate. And he should sit there and fucking sit down, shut up, and just reflect on what he said. You need to hear the words that came out of your mouth at that press conference yesterday. You should be fucking ashamed of yourself, saying you're gonna lay hands on a fucking child. Imagine that. What the fuck are you talking about? Sit there, shut your mouth, and reflect on what you said.
Which is just crazy. Again, now we're getting family involved. You're saying that you don't want people to misrepresent what's going on in your family? That's exactly what you did to Neil Magny. And you wanted to misrepresent it for your own gain, and you literally admitted that at the post-fight press conference as well.
Magny gave me gold. It's like someone handing you a gold bang on here, yeah, don't drop it. It's like, obviously not, I'm going to use this. You can't sit there and say something so fucking stupid on air, on live TV, and not get absolutely slated for it. And that was my girl.
And he basically admitted this, that he did twist his words a little bit. He did blow it out of proportion so that he could create some big moment, so that he could put Neil Magny down. He took things out of context a little bit and blew it up to create a big moment. That's exactly what the fuck he's complaining about. And you know what? Again, this guy's human. I understand how he could get upset. All right? It happens. But listen, man, if there's a book out there about how to be a wag, people are going to ask some questions. All right? If you're posting your family matters online, and I'm not saying he's posting things that are super detailed, but this guy, for a long period of time, would post videos of him and his wife having conversations in their kitchen. And it would be like one of those types of conversations where it makes you feel like you're a fly on the wall listening in. These conversations were in some way intimate. And I just find it unbelievable how you can fault people for taking you out of context when you're giving us that ability. You're calling people sheep, but you're inviting the sheep to be a fly on the wall in your intimate conversations, which, again, let's be honest, it's not like you're just talking all positivity. You're calling out this guy for being a fat wanker with a beard. I think he called out the MMA guru, all right? You're saying, if you were a wag, I would know. We'd have a serious conversation. Well, there's a wag book, and it makes people ask questions. So once again, it's like you're inviting people to talk about this stuff with that kind of content that you're putting on your own page, all right? If you don't want us to take things out of context, then I guess be a little bit more careful with how you go about managing your social media. You know what I mean? Like, holy shit, this is so hypocritical, man. All right? And he's talking about how painful all of the words were that people were saying. And let's be honest, it's probably not the MMA YouTubers. It's the people that were in his DMs threatening him and his family members. There's always the fucking psychos, all right? When the mob mentality sets in and everyone's against Ian Garry, there's always a couple psychos that are doing things that are totally uncalled for, which is just ridiculous. I mean, if you're out here and you're being a pest in someone's DMs and you're threatening them, shame on you. But this guy has done this to his opponents before. He's tried to get the masses. He's tried to incite the mob to go after Neil Magny. He did the same thing with Jeff Neal and his mugshot, dude. This guy put a mugshot of Jeff Neal on his shirt to embarrass him, to make that man feel little. And of course, he talked about how because Jeff Neal pulled out of his fight, Magny steps in. Well, if you pull out of a fight, you're the loser.
By selling his mugshot, right? I beat him. He's done. Like, I have won 2 fights in one fight camp here.
Well, by that logic, you lost your fight to Vicente Luque. All right? So, listen, this guy's never going to be a fan favorite. I get why people dislike him. He still has a lot of potential to be a star because look at what I'm doing. I'm making a video about him. You're watching a video about him. You've made it this far. You're still interested in hearing about him. He can be a mega star. All he has to do is show up. And another thing he has to do is he has to accept that he's not going to be a fan favorite. And there's one thing that really worried me while I was listening to Ian Garry speak during this interview, and that was the fact that he turned off his Instagram comments. And hear me out, guys. Ian Garry's reasoning, you know what? I may as well just play the clip right now.
Whether they love me or hate me, I'm going to reach my goals. Obviously, it would be a much nicer life if everybody loved you. But with the way the world is going and this social media becoming more accessible for people to talk shit about people, I don't know how that is. I've recently turned my comments off because for me, on Instagram, I think and sit there and say, I can protect this peace online for all the people that do love me and come to my social media to see what I'm doing, where I am, and the adventures and the freedom I'm on and who I'm training with. I want them to see that and be excited. Not go to the comment section, go, excited for your next fight, and then see people give a wave of hate. So I've turned them off. I can protect that peace. And it's the same with fighting. If you want to show up and boo at me or you want to show up and cheer for me, either way, I'm going to go out and do my job and have fun.
So he's essentially saying he turned his comments off because he wants to maintain this sense of peace on his Instagram, that it's all kumbaya. If you come to my Instagram, then this is for all the supporters. This is for all the lovers. All right? Everybody loves me. Listen, you said earlier on in the Ariel Helwani interview that if people hate you, if people make videos about you critiquing you, if you're polarizing, that's good for you. That makes people tune in. That makes people watch. That blows up your stardom. You cannot try to sit here and pretend like everything's all good. I get a lot of hate comments too. Not all of it is hate. That's like 30%. Then another 30% is legit criticism. All right, maybe there's some people asking questions. 20% is the old-fashioned pat on the back. Great video. You're making good content. Good job. If I only allow 20% of people to comment on my videos, yeah, that may make me feel good. It may give me this false idea that everything I say is perfect and I'm God's gift to earth, but I'm removing myself from reality, all right? And I'm tanking my algorithm because of that. And that's what you're doing on Instagram, buddy. 90% of MMA fans aren't allowed to engage on your content. That's not good for your business. That's not good. And he's also talking about how the criticism fuels his training and it gives him motivation. It puts a chip on his shoulder. Well, that chip on his shoulder is pretty recognizable to the fans when you're doing interviews, and that'll make you more polarizing, okay? If you're going to go out there and try to prove people wrong, we're going to get that idea, and we're just going to be more drawn to see your interviews. I mean, if you're trying to tell me that Ian Garry doesn't have star potential, you're out of your fucking mind, all right? Every single content creator in the MMA space is probably making a video about this as we speak. And if you guys are trying to act like the sport would be better without this guy, I think you're naive, because the UFC needs big stars. We have guys like O'Malley that it's just crickets when the guy talks. No one wants to tune into his interviews. Ian Garry not only has a fun fight style like O'Malley, but he's also insanely polarizing. And I believe if this guy becomes a champion, then he could be like the Mayweather of MMA, where people don't like him. They want to see him lose, but they're going to tune in. They're going to watch the press conferences. And you've got to allow these fans to engage with you. You've got to have some thick skin, because you pulled out of your last fight due to a stress-induced illness, most likely because you got worried about everything that was going on. And again, like, I've never been in that kind of position, so I don't know what it was like for Ian Garry. But moving forward, this guy has to accept that he's not a fan favorite. It's going to take a long time to convert people into being fans. But you want to be a big star. You want to make a lot of money. All right? You want the UFC to take notice that you're good for business with the views that you'll get on interviews, but also with the engagement you'll get on Instagram. If people can't engage on your Instagram, they may not even follow you. All right? So you're just alienating a massive part of the MMA fan base, which is just terrible for the long run. It's terrible for business. And, you know, this guy's sitting here and telling us how people making videos about him and talking about him, it's good for motivation. It's good for content. It makes him relevant. Well, you got to allow people to do it, and you got to accept it, right? Most people are going to dislike this guy. Most people are going to want to root against him. And he's got to say, fuck it. Let him hate. I'm still going to show up. They're not going to affect me. I'm going to be a big star nonetheless. And either they'll eventually become a fan of mine, or they're going to tune in no matter what, and they'll put money in my pockets, right? They'll give me engagement on my social media, which is just good in general. So, yeah, man, this guy's a hypocrite. I don't think he's the devil, all right? I think that Ian Garry, as long as he doesn't recreate the Neil Magny situation, I think there's a reason to root for the guy because of his star potential. I know he's flawed. I know he's a loudmouth, and that puts a target on his back. His issues are a little bit more peculiar than the average person, but at the same time, this is the fight game, all right? It's okay if we have a heel. It's all right if you don't like every guy, but every now and then it's good to be emotionally invested in these fights. I mean, look at how boring boxing is. They hardly have any personalities. Their press conferences suck. Who's really making videos about that anyway? So the UFC needs another star, and I think Ian Garry has a chance to become that guy, but he's got to show up, all right? He's got to show up. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Until next time.